Final Fantasy VII Remake is a PS4 exclusive that follows Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier that finds himself in the middle of a battle for the health of the planet. The evil Shinra Corporation is draining the planet's resources, and a rebellious group named Avalanche is trying to bring them down. As Cloud finds himself deep in this war, a familiar foe appears along the way. Alright, so I was actually on the borderline between getting this game and not getting this game, because honestly, I wasn't sure it would be for me. I really like linear, story-driven games, and I felt like this might be a little too long and a little too strategy-driven for me, for lack of a better term. And I never played the original game as a kid. I only watched my brother play it a ton, so I had no real connection to it other than that because I never actually picked up the sticks and played the original. I'm really, really glad I picked this game up though, because after completing it, I can say that this is one of the best games, hands down, I've ever played, and one of the best stories I've ever experienced. This was a really tough call for me because I actually think this may be my second favorite game of all time, behind The Last of Us in first place and just in front of Infamous Second Son. Final Fantasy VII hooked me in pretty much every single way and on every level. I think virtually everything about this game is phenomenal. Sure, there's probably a bit too much padding, but I think that was probably inevitable to make people feel like they're getting enough game for their dollar. There's about 30 hours worth of gameplay here, and from my understanding, this first game is really only supposed to be like 10% of the original game. So they clearly stretched out the original content into a much fuller first part in order to give people a story that feels satisfying enough for $60. The good thing is, it truly does. I fell in love with these characters very quickly. One of the common elements of many great games are obviously great characters, or great stories in general. Great characters have to be present for the most part. And Final Fantasy VII has an abundance of those. All of the characters were interesting in their own right. I mean, each character has a unique personality and look, and the major ones that are actually playable all have their own fighting style that makes them fun to use in combat sequences. Video games have a very exciting and unique opportunity to make you connect with the characters. This is because you get to play an active role in their story, which can invest you that much further and that much deeper. Although you primarily follow Cloud for most of the story, you spend a lot of time with these other characters understanding their strengths, their weaknesses, and what drives them to continue this fight. By the end of the game, I felt like I had formed a very emotional connection with these characters, and that made me latch onto the story that much more. And as far as the story goes, it's great. Sure, there are some detours that feel a little bit like padding, like I mentioned, but in the end, I didn't mind it because I felt like the overall journey was incredibly satisfying. I think the game paces itself out really well, and there's plenty of excitement and fun, and there's also some surprisingly dark and emotional moments there too. There's some moments in this game that really hit me hard, damn near to tears, and that's hard to do. And with the action adventure like this, it's hard for it to truly be impactful and hit those emotional highs too. But it does it. It needs to hit, all the right notes. It needs to be fun and engaging and exciting and emotional, and it does those things. You need to care about the characters for a game like this to work. And there's stories within Final Fantasy VII, you definitely do. You really, really do. There's a clear love for these characters put into this game and this story, and this reimagining does everything about it justice. But let's talk about the gameplay. The original game had turn-based combat where you select a move, your opponent selects a move, and then you go back and forth. It doesn't have that live modern feel to it like games do nowadays. That wouldn't really work in today's climate, so I felt like this remake did a masterful job reinvigorating the combat system to make it feel fresh. I felt like switching between characters was super fluid, each character had a useful and fun fighting style, and the enemies were varied enough to add challenging battle sequences throughout the game. And the graphics, Jesus guys, this is easily one of the best looking games I've ever seen. It might be the best looking game I've ever played. There were so many sequences that just floored me with the graphics that just look so photorealistic and so awesome and adventurous. The characters' expressions, the battles, the world, it's just stellar graphics in every single aspect. Again, guys, I can't say enough good things about this game. I think it's truly phenomenal and every bit worth the price tag. The final aspect of this game that I want to note, though, is the character of Sephiroth. So, if you know the original, you know who Sephiroth is. Sephiroth is such an amazing villain in every way. He has a badass look, he's composed, he's insanely powerful. I particularly love the voice acting for Sephiroth, although all the voice actors do excellent work in their roles. Sephiroth's voice just had that perfect villainous feel to it that lend itself to, the nature of the character. But overall, I don't think there's too much more I can say about the game. I think it's an absolute must-buy if you have a PS4, and of course you like action-adventure games. The Final Fantasy VII Remake gets a total 10 out of 10 from me, and I strongly suggest you pick it up if you haven't already. Make sure to let me know your guys' thoughts on the game in the comments below, and of course, the original game, if you have played that one as well. I'm super excited to see actually what happens in part 2 because Square Enix left things on a major cliffhanger. So I think ultimately the game will be a total of 3 parts, but I guess we'll see. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. I'll see you guys in the next review.